And we are live again. Royce Eddings, Royce in the house here. I want to thank everyone that's joining us tonight, everyone that'll be watching the show in the future. You're all very much appreciated. The show's been growing. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank my subscribers. Subscribing really helps to grow the show. And if you're not already a subscriber, consider subscribing if you like the show. And you can even hit the notification bell, and you'll get sent notifications when the next show is going to be starting. I just got a comment from my co-host Dan McNew. He'll be here shortly. Technical difficulties again, and I was having them too right up to showtime. Things were buffering. Things weren't going on. I restarted my modem. I unplugged it. anyway, anyway, we're here now and we're getting going. And I want to thank everybody for joining us. Dan will be here shortly, and there are a couple others that'll be joining us over time. Tonight, we're going to talk about a very unique and fun topic. And I want to say hi to Gloria. Hi, Gloria. How you doing, Gloria? Good to see you here. Thank you for showing up. We're going to be talking about Laurel Canyon, and the time and place is going to be mid 60s, early 70s. And this was that period of time where the Summer of Love was getting started in San Francisco. That psychedelic period of time, protest, and what we had was in the hills above Hollywood, we had Laurel Canyon. It had previously been more of an enclave for movie actors because just right down the hill was all the movie studios. But over time, like in the mid '60s, all kinds of musicians started moving to Laurel Canyon, and it became a haven for rock and roll musicians. And the list of musicians that were there is just almost crazy. There were so many people, well-known musicians. I want to say hi to Angela. Thanks for joining, Angela, and also to my good buddy Eddie's Physical Media Talk. Eddie has a great podcast. You all need to check out Eddie's Physical Media Talk. He plays really good songs throughout his podcast, and it's just a lot of fun. I get to hear a lot of stuff that I'm not that familiar with, and I realize that I want to go buy the music because he just plays great stuff. Really, really knows his stuff. Hi, Caitlin. You're really going to enjoy this show tonight, Caitlin. There's a whole lot of Monkees talk. Mickey Dolenz, Peter Tork. They were big figures in the whole Laurel Canyon scene. So to start off with, in the 60s, the musicians started taking the place of the actors and stuff that were living in Laurel Canyon. And I mean, the list is like you had, Mama Cass of the, Mamas and Papas and the rest of the band too. You had Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young before they were a band. And these people were all walking distance from each other and all jamming together. Frank Zappa was there. And we have a whole bunch of individual stories I want to tell. I'm just going to run down the list of some of the people that were there because it's just crazy. Joni Mitchell, Frank Zappa, Jim Morrison of the Doors was there. And we have stories on all of them. Carole King, The Byrds, Buffalo Springfield, Canned Heat, John Mayall. John Lennon had a wild couple of days there. We'll talk about that in a little bit too. It's just a crazy story. Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys was there. James Taylor was there. Jackson Browne was there. Glenn Frey of the Eagles was living there. He was in the Eagles, but Glenn Frey was, as an individual, was living in Laurel Canyon. And oh my God, Bonnie Raitt, Linda Ronstadt, Harry Nilsson, Mickey Dolenz, Peter Tork of the Monkees, and everybody kind of wanted to hang out with the Monkees. Everybody loved those guys. And also we had John Phillips, of course, of the Mamas and the Papas, and Cass Elliott's home, Mama Cass, was considered one of Laurel Canyon's biggest party houses. The parties went on all night long, drug-fueled sleepovers, well attended by the hippest musicians and movie stars of the era, all happening at Mama Cass's house. So we're going to start getting into some of that. But how did Laurel Canyon become rock central in the 60s and early 70s? Well, in the 60s and 70s, the folk musicians, the psychedelic rockers, the country rockers, groups trying to get a little edge, they all flocked to Laurel Canyon. And they seem to have found their Shangri-La there, to be honest with you. Everybody was loving it. Hey, Daddy Bog, what are you doing? Hi, Lady Bee Gees. That's great. And I know who you're talking about, Caitlin. I know you love the Monkees. Don't we all, though? I grew up with that group. And Angela loves Mama Cass. And incidentally, there was a rumor that persisted for a long time that Mama Cass choked to death eating a ham sandwich because she was a big girl. But you know what? That's not what happened. Mama Cass had a heart attack. In fact, Mama Cass and Mama Cass died in a flat in London owned by Harry Nilsson. And the drummer for The Who also died there in the same flat owned by Harry Nilsson. Harry Nilsson, who incidentally was also living in Laurel Canyon. Let's see. Mama Cass used to babysit Matthew Gunner. Yeah, right on, Gloria. Thank you. Caitlin goes ape over the Monkees. we're all getting to know each other pretty well here. But I want to thank everybody that subscribed to the show so far. Please hit the thumbs up, the like button. And what that does is it lets the algorithm know that people enjoy watching the show. And so when people are searching for content to watch, they might suggest that if the content that they're searching for is anything close to a music show, they might suggest our show. And that's all helpful. Michael Nolan, the bottom line. Look at this. Celebrity in the house. Did someone mention drug fuel parties? That's great, Michael. Hey, Michael. You know what? I'm gonna put up a link, and I'd love to have you join me here. Dan's experiencing some technical difficulties. He will be on, but Michael, I'm gonna throw a link on for you because I think you really need to be part of this conversation. Okay, Michael. Link is up, brother. So here we are in Laurel Canyon. You've got Mama Cass, you've got Joni Mitchell, you've got all these huge stars, and you know what? There's one really funny story I might start with. It has to do with everybody. Everybody was trying to take credit for introducing Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young because they formed in the Laurel Canyon. Hi, Michael.
Hey, Royce. How you doing?
It's good to see you, brother. We're talking about Laurel Canyon and that whole music scene up there, and it was crazy. The one story I was gonna start with was the fact that everybody up there was taking credit for putting Crosby, Stills, and Nash together.
Yeah.
They were up there partying with everybody else and living up there, and let's see. Two things are apparent. Everyone was high. Everyone thinks that it was their idea to get Crosby, Stills, and Nash together. David Crosby was producing Joni Mitchell's first album, and Stephen Stills was hanging around quite a bit, as was Graham Nash. So the guys have gotten together at any time. However, a few key people are pretty sure they made that happen. Okay.
Yep.
And Joni Mitchell states that when she first met Graham Nash in Ottawa and then re-met him in California, David was producing my first album, and all these people were here. I do believe I introduced them at my house. That's where Crosby, Stills, Nash was born. Okay, then Stephen Stills says that actually wasn't the case. Mama Cass put the group together. Right. We say that we ran into one another at one night at the Troubadour. The Troubadour was just down the hill. If you went down the hill to the Laurel Canyon store and no one was there, and no one seemed to be partying on the hill, if you went down to the Troubadour, everyone was there. That was the hangout, and they jammed and partied till they got thrown out. It got late and they got thrown out, but everybody hung out at the Troubadour. Stephen said that Mama Cass put the group together. He said they ran into her one night at the Troubadour, and she told him, "When David Crosby calls, you come over to my house with your guitar. Don't ask, just do it." Okay, well, the call came and he popped over to Cass's house. He continued, "I can see it now in the living room, the dining room, the pool, the kitchen. And we're in the living room, and there's Graham Nash." And Cass goes, "So sing." And we sang in the morning. So anyway, so everybody was taking credit for that. And I don't really know who put them together. I think they kind of found each other. But I thought that was a pretty cool story. Hey, Michael, you've probably got a few stories about the whole Laurel Canyon scene. I mean, we had
Well,
everybody there.
actually, I have a personal story. This would have occurred in 1973. So that was the time. I wish I could mention
Yeah,
names, but I think I've told you before, Royce. I learned my first trade, which is basically sales. I learned
yeah,
to sell everything from from a group of old telecommunicators, the boiler
yeah,
room
yeah.
operators. Well, I was taught to sell, and I got involved in selling tickets to a show called Europe-A-Rama. Europe-A-Rama,
Europe-A-Rama. Okay,
right?
okay.
And this was basically a traveling circus. And it was one of those circuses back then that I guess the family that owned it were the high wire act. And so it was called the
Okay.
Europa, yeah, so it was called the Europa Rama High Wire Show. And I
Okay.
sold tickets for them. First,
Oh,
just
wow.
right out of the phone book, hi, Mrs. Smith. And they said, the
No
kid's
kidding.
got talent, And so they brought me in to start selling to businesses pretty soon. At 18 years old, Voice, I was all up and down California, opening offices to sell
Wow.
to this show. So
Okay.
here's my Laurel Canyon story.
Okay, cool.
The the owners of the show either rented, leased, or begged, borrowed, or stole a home up in Laurel Canyon. And
Okay.
what they did, they were doing, it was just a party. And since I had made a little bit of an uproar, my manager said, you need to be at this party. So I went there. And you know what? There were producers, record producers there. You'd be surprised how well connected this basically circus family
Wow.
was to the Hollywood crowd. Now,
That's amazing.
this is 1973, Royce. So it's still
Wow.
in the Laurel Canyon heyday, but it
Oh
was
yeah,
also
yeah.
the beginning of the end,
Beginning
kind
of
of.
the end. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
of the
But still, it was
flowering
still
period.
happening.
Yeah, yeah. And I was introduced to these producers, but I was 18. I was a musician. I was in a band at the time, had been for years.
Oh, nice.
Big. I was a big Beatle fan, and my information or knowledge base at the time was, well, there was John Paul, George Ringo, and George Martin, and yeah, Brian Epstein. That was my knowledge base of my favorite band at the time. So
Gotcha.
pr- producers being introduced to this kid, I didn't know what to do with that. What do you
No,
do
I
with
mean,
that?
who would? Who would know what to do, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
I sure
yeah.
as hell wouldn't.
Just crazy. So, but
Yeah,
I got to tell you, the energy of Laurel Canyon, the things
yeah.
we see on
Right,
film and in documentaries and interviews,
right,
it
right,
it
right.
was I was there at that time, at least on one
Wow.
day, and that energy, it really was there, buddy. It really was there.
I can imagine. It just blows my mind when we just think about this lineup for a minute. Imagine, Cass Elliot, the Mamas and Papas, Joni Mitchell, Frank Zappa, Jim Morrison, of the Doors, of course, Carole King, the Byrds, Buffalo Springfield, Canned Heat, John Mayall.
And
That's just
John Mayall meeting Canned Heat, writing a song about meeting Canned Heat called "The Bear,"
right.
including it on his album that's titled Laurel Canyon. The whole album is his experiences of arriving at Laurel Canyon, visiting, and leaving Laurel Canyon later to move, well, at least for a 10-year
Yeah,
period, into
right,
the
right.
into the area. Wow.
Yeah, James Taylor, Jackson Brown. Jackson Brown lived just below Glen Fry. They could hear each
Yeah.
other practicing, right? And this is kind of a funny story. And Jackson Brown was writing a song for the Eagles and Glenn Fry, and Glenn Fry was listening, through the floor and the walls, and he saw that poor Jackson Brown got really frustrated and he just couldn't figure out how to go forward. And so he called him up and gave him a line to use, you know,
Yep.
and they
It's a
finished,
girl,
they
my
finished the song,
lord.
and huh?
Yeah. It's a girl, my lord, there in a flatbed
Yeah,
Ford.
and a
That
flatbed
was the
Ford
line.
slowing down to take a look at me, and that was the line,
And
and
yeah.
that finished the song. That finished the
Yep.
song, and of course, it became a staple later on. And we are being joined by my young musician brother, who's got his own podcast called the Jesus Movement, and he's out there
Hey,
saving
Richie.
souls.
Hey, can you see
I've
me?
watched you many times, Richie.
Have
I
you
feel
really?
like I know you. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Well, here on Royce.
Oh, on Royce. Okay, well,
Yeah.
now you're going to watch me, actual me, on my thing. But that's
Oh.
No,
okay.
that's
That's okay.
well, brother, I'm catching up. I'll get there.
Oh, I know you will. I know. I'm not worried.
But you know, another little side story is Cass Elliott's home was considered one of Laurel Canyon's biggest party houses, with all-night drug-fueled sleepovers, well attended by the hippest musicians and movie stars in the era. So Mama Cass, she was you know, she was big in a lot of ways, but she was really a popular, you know, party place. In fact, I think it was Michelle Phillips went over to visit Mama Cass, and and this is another story, but Michelle Phillips and Mama Cass never, ever, ever cleaned her house. She just never cleaned it. And Michelle Phillips
Wow.
said she walked in, and one of those great big mayonnaise jars had been dropped in the kitchen and busted and just left there. And the place was just a total train wreck. And she spent like a half a day cleaning Mama Cass's house for her.
Yep.
But anyway,
But you know, Mama Cass, Royce, Mama Cass, she wasn't just a party animal in the center of a lot of parties. She was. You're absolutely
yeah,
right.
right.
But even when she was in England, English rock stars sought her out. A lot of people really respected
Yeah.
that woman for what she thought was the pulse beat of the
Yeah.
music industry at that
Okay.
time. And I agree, she was very instrumental in getting Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
Yeah,
together,
no,
at
she was
least.
very talented, very
Yeah.
talented. In fact, I want to pop a picture up here that I think is kind of interesting. And what we have here is let me find it first. We have Mama Cass Elliott, Michelle Phillips, both of the mamas and the papas, and of all people, one of my faves, Jimi Hendrix. And you
Yeah.
can see Michelle Phillips looks pretty wasted. And I think Hendrix is trying to make a move here, you know. And there's Mama
I think
Cass
so.
on the side over here. I think that's a great photograph. I mean, every everybody was hanging out there. Everybody.
I was reading something about Laurel Canyon. I didn't realize it was so big and popular with all these rock and roll people. You know, I had no idea. But
Yeah.
Mama Cass was like a matchmaker there too.
Yeah.
She would she got a lot of people together, you know, couples and stuff, you know.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, people would just show up and stay there at her house and different houses there, I guess. And
Yeah.
maybe I can introduce you to so and so, you know. And
Right. Yeah. Her house and Joni Mitchell's house were both like, you know, they traded off being party central, you know, and people would come over and they would just make music together just all night long. It was just an amazing period of time.
It says my house is a very free house. It's not a crash pad, and people don't come without calling. But on an
Right.
afternoon, especially on weekends, I always get a lot of delicatessen food because I know David Crosby is going to swim, and things are going to happen. Okay.
Right.
You know, we were talking about Glenn Fry, you know, finishing that phrase and getting co-writing credit on that song with Jackson Browne, Royce.
Yeah.
What about his story about when he first arrived in LA? You know, he had just decided, okay, I gotta
Right.
relocate. He arrives in LA, and who the hell does he see? He sees David Crosby in that real low
Yes.
hat. You know,
that's exactly right. That's exactly
you know,
right.
he's basically off the bus or airplane, whatever he took, and there's, you know, zooming past him is David Crosby.
Right.
What can you imagine? I mean, think of the energy that was going around at that time, man, just amazing.
Right. Let's see. I got Caitlin up here, and I got a.
I'm looking at a picture of Jackson Browne right now, and it's talking about just what Michael was talking about. Can you believe that? Very good, Michael.
Really? Well, I got that from the Eagles documentary, buddy. But
you did?
Yeah, he tells that tale in the the big, what is that, a 3-hour documentary that's out now, and he was talking about it himself. So that's really weird that you'd pick that up.
Yeah, it's like it says Glenn Frey and Jackson Browne were neighbors.
That's right.
And they lived so close to one another that they could hear one another working on a new music.
Yes. Right. And Glenn Frey, by the way, in that documentary, he said that he would hear, I don't think it was this song, but Dr. Maya, and he'd keep hammering it for an hour. And then no sound, a tea kettle would go off. A few minutes later, a new verse would arrive. And Glenn Frey said that was his best lesson and his greatest lesson on how to write a song. He said, it takes sweat.
Frey was lying on his bed and listening to Browne write "Take It Easy."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And not only that, we were just talking about that before you came on, Rick. And Glenn Frey heard that Jackson Browne got stumped. He just couldn't finish, a line. And so Glenn Frey called him up and said, "Try this. It's a girl. It's a girl.
Yeah, it's a girl, my lord. Yeah,
my lord." And a flatbed Ford slowing down to take a look.
Take a look at me.
That finished the song.
But the brilliant line is rhyming Arizona with corner. What a brilliant line.
Oh yeah, right.
It's a girl, my lord.
Yeah, go for it.
No, I don't know yet. Just got it in my mind, but I've never played the song. I'll just do that. Maybe I can figure out that one line. But go ahead and talk.
Oh, okay.
Wait for me.
So we don't want to talk about this yet, but it didn't end real well. At some point, there was some bad things going on up there. Things were happening. But during the heyday, I mean, I just can't even imagine. I moved to California in like late 71 or early 72. As soon as I saved $400, I moved to California. In fact, my mother came out into the driveway, and I was painting my car in the driveway. I had taken an auto body class, and she says, "Royce, are you still moving to California today?" And I couldn't get out of Henderson, Nevada quick enough. No offense to anybody that lives there now. I like it now too, and I liked it then too. We had a lot of fun back there. But she said, "Are you still moving to California today?" And I go, "Yes, I am." And she goes, "Well, when are you leaving?" And I said, "As soon as I finish painting my car." And as soon as I finished painting it, and of course I had newspaper and masking tape, covering the bumpers, the wheels, the windshields. As soon as I finished spraying, I don't want to wait for it to dry. I wanted to get the hell out of town. I was peeling the paper off and getting that enamel paint all over my hands, which doesn't come off that easy, And I jumped in the car with the paint still wet and took off for California.
Oh my goodness!
Late 71, early 72, and I never even heard about Laurel Canyon when I got there.
Right.
We were in Long Beach, and Long Beach had its own insanity. Its own scene that was just off the charts. I mean, we'd have carloads of Vegas friends visiting us every weekend for a variety of reasons. And but anyway, we had a good time. It was crazy, and some of us are lucky to be alive and survived it all, and some didn't. And my apartment became kind of a revolving door because my friends kept getting homesick. There'd be 3 of us there, and one of them run back to Henderson, and this is my chance. He'd run out and move in with us, and that's the way it went. For about a year, people just coming and going. And but it was fun, and these were all good friends from a small town, Henderson, Nevada. We all knew each other well, and went to school together and grew up together. So it was good. And I don't know why I never heard about things like Laurel Canyon.
I never did.
Yeah.
Till today. I mean, I saw it on the signs on the road, but I never really knew there was anything going on there.
Right.
The only reason I was aware of the Laurel Canyon experience is I was an avid avid interview reader, every issue of the Rolling Stone for a while, and Cream magazine, Guitar Player magazine. So, in the interviews, Laurel Canyon kept being mentioned by all these great bands. I mean, is it Lou Adler who was the producer? Is that his name? It's Lou something for the Mamas and Papas. They would interview him,
sure.
and even he would talk about this mythical place, and so you just kind of became aware of it as you read through interviews about your favorite bands. And
Yeah. And Angela's asking if anyone see Echo in the Canyon movie. Really good. Now, about a year ago, Betty and I watched a movie about Laurel Canyon, and it was really good. I don't know if it was called Echo in the Canyon. I just don't remember that for sure. But Zepp Pearl said it's a fantastic movie. He was at the Chicago premiere of Jacob Dylan performed. I think I have a clip on my channel. Oh, that's cool.
Well, if V says it's a great movie, I trust him.
I do pretty too. He's really got his act together.
Yeah, he's put out some really great videos lately too on his channel.
Right. Let's see. He's saying something. It's
Lou Adler.
Lou Adler. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, V. Yeah.
Daddy Boggs said the same thing. Adler.
Awesome.
Well, we've got some people that really know a lot about what's going on here. Angela said the same thing without seeing anybody else's answer. Yes, Lou Adler, Michael. Nice.
Awesome.
Wow. Wow. What a group we have here.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what's going on with Dan here. He contacted me within a minute of the show starting and said he was experiencing technical difficulties.
Yeah, for some reason it's not recognizing my camera. I even used a second camera.
Okay.
And all I get is, let me show you here.
Okay.
I get a blank screen, but I got the audio. Right. At least I have the audio working.
Yeah, at least you have the audio working. And you said you had a few things you might want to show tonight too, didn't you?
Yeah, I made a quick it's about a 2.5-minute video of different scenes out of the Laurel Canyon back in the day.
No, that'd be cool. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Let me bring that up.
Okay, great.
Dan the man, I'm telling you, he
always comes up with these great little videos.
I tell you.
All right, it's uploaded. All you gotta do is bring it in the studio. Now, the first thing we're going to see here, it's I don't know. I've since I've been out, I don't know what stories y'all have told, but this is a story about the Doors.
Okay.
And Robbie and John Dinsmore, they both were roommates.
Right.
On Lookout Mountain Road.
Okay.
And the reason a lot of people live there anyway, they say because it was cheap. And, they all kind of, it was so cheap. So they kind of just migrated all there. But anyway, one day Jim Morrison stops by their house and he's all depressed. And he's just, things are going bad. And he's just saying, in his words, things are fucked, and he just, so, I think it was Robbie. Yeah, Robbie went with Jim Morrison and said, well, let's walk up the street here, maybe clear our heads and let's talk about things, So they walk up Lookout Mountain all the way to a place where it merges with another street.
Okay.
And this spot overlooks L.A., beautiful view of L.A. And I guess Robbie went back to the house. And about half hour later, here comes Jim Morrison back to the house. And he said, hey, take a look at these lyrics here. And so the lyrics were, people are strange when you're a stranger. Yeah. And so he kept reading all the lyrics and they're going, hey, those lyrics are great, man. Do you have a melody to go along with it? So he started singing it. And that's how that song came about. And on this video here, it shows their house that they lived in. And I show on a map where he walked and the exact spot he stood when he came up with those lyrics and what he was seeing at the time. So it's a pretty neat little video.
Now, Dan, I can't tell if it's been loaded yet. It's sitting here, but I don't see anything. It's still a black screen.
I gotta get this. You should see another. Well, it should be loaded.
Okay. Well, let me try to bring it up then.
Yeah. And there's no audio. Yeah, there's no audio, so it'll.
Okay, there we go. Okay.
There.
So we can talk over it.
Where is this, Dan?
This is John Dinsmore and Robbie Krieger's house, and it's right where that red arrow is.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so Jim Morrison and Robbie walked up the street. In fact, you can see a little bit of how the house looks, but they walk up the street here. There's a big S turn in the street. He described in his book. So they walk up through the S street there,
Wow.
and it merges with Appian Way. And at that point, it becomes Appian Way. And just about 100 yards further past this house here is an open area.
Okay.
And that's where Robbie left him, went back to the house, and Jim just stood there looking over L.A. And this is kind of what he saw from that exact spot.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
You see
We
L.A. kind
are there,
of
folks.
off to the left is L.A. And I guess it was at nighttime or right at sunset when he did it. Now, this is at Mama Cass's house. Her house was kind of the center party point. Everybody seemed to go to her house.
Right.
And look, that's Eric Clapton on the right. And you got David
Oh, that's
Crosby.
Eric Clapton. Okay.
Yeah, and Joni Mitchell.
It says about Eric Clapton,
Yeah,
he
Joni Mitchell.
was amazed at the way Joni Mitchell tuned her guitar to a chord and only played one finger chords, just across the whole thing.
Right.
And he was sitting there like, oh, man, he's never seen anybody do that before.
Now, this is pretty cool here. Everybody's seen this album cover right here. Okay, they went down and had this picture made, and they realized, you know what, we're in the wrong order. That's Nash, Stills, and Crosby. So they went back the next day to reverse where they were sitting. The house was demolished. The house was gone.
Oh no! You got to be kidding me.
So they were just kind of stuck. And this was the country store. This was kind of a
Right.
This is where Jim Morrison said the creatures hung out there.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah,
also Mama Cass stayed there for a while too. Now
That's his longtime girlfriend that lived with him there. Didn't he live in the back of the store?
It's behind the store and off to the right a little bit. There it is right there. But that's not what it looked like back then, though. It was all.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it was an all wooden house back in those days.
Everything looked a little tattered back then.
And that's where they nicknamed it Love Street. And this right here, this is where Frank Zappa lived when he first got to Laurel Canyon, Laurel Tavern, and there's a bowling alley and everything down on different levels. And this is Frank Zappa's house, at the end. And that's pretty much all I got.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Thank you. Thanks for bringing that in.
You know that John Mayall album I mentioned earlier, Royce has a song. I forget it's a number, 2401, 2410. Anyway, he wrote about meeting Frank Zappa and Moon Unit there in the canyon. That house right there, I believe it was the number of their house. I may be wrong on that. Somebody out there will correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
But isn't that weird? That is a great video, Dan.
Yeah, that is a great video,
right
Dan. Thank you so much. You always put so much time into all this stuff. Let me throw up a couple of pictures here that I had. Okay, Laurel Canyon, the birth of the hippie generation. And yes, this was happening at the same time as, the Summer of Love in San Francisco, where, an estimated 100,000 people migrated to San Francisco, all hippie type culture, counterculture, I should say. Anti-establishment, anti-war. There was all kinds of protests taking place during that era, not just war, civil rights, women's rights, civil rights, anti-war. There was a few others too. I mean, it was just pandemonium back then. Things were just on fire. But anyway, so that was all taking place at the same time. We had this rather peaceful enclave up here in Laurel Canyon. I think that's why I would have rather have been.
There was drama there though.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So things got kind of bad near the end. I think there was a gang that there's a lot of drug dealing going on. Things got kind of ruthless. I have some notes on that. I'm going to pull up another picture real quick. Look at that, Mickey. Now is that Harry Nilsson back here?
Yes,
that's Harry
I
Nilsson.
believe it is.
Okay.
Yes,
that's Alice Cooper with his head cocked over.
Alice Cooper, John Lennon.
I can't believe the Monkees. I didn't realize how popular the Monkees really were.
Oh, the Monkees were really popular. In fact, one of the stories I have, Peter Tork lived up there too, and Peter Tork used to throw parties, And the number one requirement when you came to Peter's house for a party was you had to be naked.
Yeah,
And
Peter
he
was a
naked
nudist.
at the start of the party. You know, he had a swimming pool, but everybody had to be naked, and Peter was just naked all the damn time. So I thought that was pretty funny.
So they call him Naked Peter or what?
Yeah, Naked Peter.
Oh,
Yeah, there you go.
Here we go.
oh man.
Look at this lineup: Frank Zappa, Jim Morrison, and let's see. Can someone
That's
place this?
John.
That's John
Isn't that
Phillips.
John?
Yeah,
John
John Phillips.
Mamas
Okay,
and Papas.
okay, thank you.
And this is in front of the country store.
Yeah.
Now,
That
as you're
was the
looking
big
at
thing. The
Yeah,
country store was like the big gathering place when you weren't at a party at one of your friends' houses.
yeah, as you're looking at that country store, right beside it, and back one street is where Jim Morrison lives. Off to the right, he lived off to the right there, one street in the back.
Gotcha. Okay.
Wow. Amazing.
I don't know if you saw this picture, Dan. I thought this was kind of funny. Here's Michelle Phillips, the Mamas and the Papas,
Oh,
Jimi
yeah.
Hendrix. He looks like he's trying to make a move there. And
Yeah,
Mama
but
Cass-
you know, look where he's looking. He's looking at Mama. Look at those eyeballs.
Well, I
You
think
know,
during,
I think he's trying to make sure she's not going to hit him over the head with something.
and I think during this time frame, he was called Jimmy James. I don't think he was really Jimi Hendrix yet.
That could be, yeah.
I think so.
Wasn't
I
Michelle
think you're
Phillips
right
in one
there.
of the weekly series on TV?
Yeah, what would that? Yeah, they were like crime fighters or something. What was the name of that?
Or what? I thought it was something like not Dallas, but the other one.
No, you're talking about Peggy Lipton, Royce.
Yeah,
Mod
they look-
Squad.
Yeah.
They did have a similar look, though.
Yeah, that's true.
But there was Michelle Phillips. I thought was.
I thought she played in a weekly series also.
Well,
but I can't remember.
well, you got Mackenzie
maybe.
Phillips. Mackenzie Phillips that was in One Day at a Time.
One day.
What about no? It was what was the other one that came on after Dallas, but it got really big too.
Dynasty?
Huh?
Yeah,
Dynasty.
No,
It might
was,
have been Dynasty.
Falcon's Crest.
No, it
No,
wasn't Falcon Crest.
it's the one
Which
that
one was,
happened in the Enclave. Remember, it was Knots Landing.
Knots Landing.
I
I think
that's
she
what
was in
you're
that one.
talking
I
about.
think she was in
Yeah.
that. I'm not positive,
Okay.
but I think she was.
Was that
No, she
Michelle
was.
Phillips there?
Yeah, that was Michelle Phillips later in the 80s, you know. Still real beautiful, but yeah, she was on
Yeah.
that show, I think.
Yeah. Well, you know, Glenn Fry hosted weekly poker games during Monday Night Football, and that was a big hit. Everybody would come over and play poker during the football game. I thought that was kind of cool. And you know, Glenn Fry and Don Henley there too, also of the Eagles. Laurel Canyon was just singers, songwriters wearing flannel. Okay, let me see. The Eagles started to take off. Glenn Fry started up a weekly poker game that coincided with Monday night's football. And one of the attendees will definitely shock you, Fry explained. In 1974, he moved to a place around the corner, Kirkwood, and we had a poker game Monday night during football season. And you know what? I have my notes a little confused. I'll catch up on that. Okay, it was a notorious game. Joni Mitchell got wind of the card game, and she always was a good hang. So she started coming over every Monday night and playing cards with us. We'd watch football from 6 to 9 and then play cards until the wee hours. They called our house the Kirkwood Casino. And, you know, Alice Cooper auditioned for Frank Zappa. And he really didn't have, you know, he'd been playing, you know, down in Hollywood, but he didn't have any notoriety. And Vincent Furnier, you know, Alice Cooper, his real name, and his band, Alice Cooper, had been in LA since '67, and they weren't gaining any traction. They were just they were going nowhere. But in '69, his manager saw the band clear a room, and their first song, within their first song, and they knew there was something there. So he set up an audition with Frank Zappa for 7:00 p.m.
Yeah.
Well, Alice Cooper and his band showed up at 7 a.m. 12 hours early, you know. And rather than kick them to the curb, Zappa brought them in to see what they were all about. The same year, Zappa released Alice Cooper's debut album, Pretties for You, it would still be years before the band had a major hit on their hands, but they were on their way. In '75, Vermeer would officially change his name to Alice Cooper. So I thought that was an interesting story. I had no idea they were auditioning for Frank Zappa, and he produced their first album. I mean, did any of you guys know that?
Yeah, there's a little bit more to that story too.
Okay, go ahead.
Frank Zappa had just started his what was it called? Bizarre Records. I think it was called Bizarre Records, and I don't think he'd even signed anybody yet. And I think the show that they were talking about was at Whiskey A Go Go.
Oh yeah.
Frank Zappa was there, and I guess the first band had already played. Then Alice Cooper gets up there. Well, like me tonight, they had technical difficulties. While they're playing, all he was hearing was white noise coming out the speakers, and it was just trashy. Oh. And they're going, "Oh, crap, this is terrible." And Frank Zappa asked him, said, "What the hell's going on there?" And they go, "We don't know." And he goes, "I like it." So he goes, "I like it because I don't understand it." Of course. So he said that's when he made the appointment to come down to his house for the little interview. And of course they misinterpreted the time. And of course, the way I understand the story, they were already down there performing. Frank Zappa comes walking in his robe and his slippers, saying, "What the fuck is going on?"
Wow.
He goes, "Well, you said to be here at 7." He goes, "I meant PM, but go ahead, let's go do it. You're already here." So,
right.
Dan is hitting on something really important here, coming from a genius, Frank Zappa. He loved it because he didn't understand it. Isn't that a key to a lot of the music we grew up with? We didn't understand Yes when we first heard, for most of us, Fragile. We didn't understand that,
Right.
We didn't understand Led Zeppelin, but there was something to explore and get excited about, and it was real. And Frank Zappa nails it with that comment, Dan.
Yeah, and something else, when they got through doing their little interview, I guess, performing for Frank, evidently the song didn't end like Frank thought it was going to end. There really wasn't an ending to this song. And he confronted me, he goes, what happened? He goes, "You guys just stopped." He goes, "Well, that's the end of the song." He goes, "I don't understand it, but I'm still going to sign you guys because I don't understand it." I mean, he was all about experimentation, I guess.
Yes.
What may work and what may not work. He just kind of, his name of his record company was Bizarre Records, so
right.
Well, that's funny.
Yeah. Well, Frank Zappa is the mad scientist of rock, if you ask me.
Yeah. What did he die from?
Some type of cancer, I believe.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw Alice Cooper for the first time just this past April, right here in Paso Robles, 10 miles away. And I tell you what, I thoroughly enjoyed it. In fact, I enjoyed it so much. On my cell phone, I filmed the entire concert, and actually put it on Facebook, and I've still got it, loaded in a couple of places. But it was
you must have one of them there 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte phones.
Yeah, well, I don't know, but I was afraid my battery was going to run out.
Yeah,
but it held up. I was really surprised.
You got the whole concert, huh?
I had the entire concert, start to finish. And I
Do
even
you still have it? You should put that out on the channel, man.
Well, yeah,
parts of it.
Yeah, you could put parts of it out. Yeah, you always get these. I don't know if that would be a strike, or just a the milder version. What you don't want is a strike.
Yeah. Actually, Zep Pearl's channel.
Yeah.
He does that occasionally. I don't know. Ask him. He might be able to come up with some ideas.
There's a bunch of guys, there's a bunch of our friends that have shows, podcasts, and they just play album after album after album.
Yeah. Yeah.
I play one song and it's a copyright, not strike, but the milder version, and which means if you ever got monetized, you'd have to maybe split it with whoever owns the copyright.
Right.
But I don't know how severe it's got to get before it goes to a copyright strike. Dan, do you know that at all?
No, you can have a lot of copyright claims and it doesn't affect you.
Right. A lot of copyright claims. But I mean, if you put someone's entire concert on, so I guess these guys, a lot of guys, when it comes to joining the partnership program with YouTube and all this stuff, If everything they're doing is full of copyright claims. I went to one of our local restaurants in Morro Bay, one of my favorites, Tognasini's Dockside, where you sit outside. It's dog friendly. You got a dog on a leash, you can bring it in. They even have leashes underneath the tables bolted down. And you can go in there and you sit there right next to the boats in the harbor and watch the seals and paddle boarders go by and boats go by. And it's just a fantastic place. But live music all the time. People just come and play for tips. And there's some really good
Right.
guys that come in there, guys and gals, that come in there and just play for tips. And it's a lot of fun to be there. And I don't know how many times I've sat there and filmed them. And the last time I did it, I filmed this one guy do 3 songs, and I have a copyright claim on all 3 of them,
Wow.
And,
Wow.
he was just covering somebody's songs. And
Right.
and that's happened to me a bunch of times. I've actually edited some little travel videos where I'd film somebody making music and stuff like that. But like I said, a bunch of our friends will just play album after album, and some of those shows go on for 3 hours. It's just album
I know.
after album.
Yeah,
And
I don't know how they get away
you've
with
got to
that.
be getting copyright claims on every single one of them.
Have to, yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
okay. They're doing what they want to do, and they're enjoying it. And that's as important as anything else.
Yeah,
That-
and there are rules like I've heard that if you only play less than 10 seconds, but then if you do that, I've heard copyright claims can even be attached to those with certain
Yeah.
bands and artists. So what do you do?
Yeah, no, that's right.
I would love to play music on my channel, but
I would too.
I'm not going to deal with that headache. I mean, copyright claims, keeping track of that in YouTube Studio, and someone wants more than a copyright claim. I'm not going to flirt with that.
Right. No, I totally hear you, and I don't know.
Hey, Pepe.
Can a copyright claim become a copyright strike? I don't even know the answer to that.
Oh
No, it
yeah,
does-
they can.
Well, will it?
Oh yeah, a copyright claim can be a strike. As a matter of fact, they let you know right away. You've got a copyright claim. The only reason I know this is I covered a good friend of mine's album, Quinn Hedges. It was mastered by Bob Ludwig, who used to master Led Zeppelin. So I thought, oh, this would be great because I do a few Led Zeppelin videos, and so I covered that, and I got a copyright, which is fine. More money to Quinn is amen to that. But I got a copyright claim from CD Baby, all right, but it said right, and it's my first and only so far, and it said right up front, this does not count against you. But you can get that same notification where it says that this is like strike one, and you've got evidently so much time.
Three strikes and you're out. Yeah.
Well, there's different levels of those claims as well, where they're going to say, look, it's a copyright claim. It's not going to affect you at all. Don't worry about it. We're still going to broadcast it everywhere. Well, then you get some will say, well, it's going to be blocked in certain countries.
Right.
Or we're going to go ahead and delete out this one section. You have the option to delete certain sections, but they can mute you in different countries too. I don't know what exactly how that works.
Okay.
Yeah, and my channel has 23% of my viewership is from other countries. I don't want 23% of my viewers not seeing my videos. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, we've got Ricefield Records here, and another good podcaster. Everybody should check out Ricefield Records. He's great. And let's see, JB Tharp, our buddy JB Tharp just joined us. We played a video of him doing that Sam Cooke song. If you ever change your mind, right? That's the one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, we've got a lot of podcasters. Dave the Pickup Artist has been popping in a lot, and those first 2 Alice Cooper albums were insane.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave. We really appreciate your participation. Thank you very much. And as well as everybody else, Angela, Daddy Bog, Caitlin. I mean, We just love having you guys with us. You know, it just makes the whole Steve Midtham. Thank you, Steve. Yeah, you've been probably following Robbie Detroit just like I have, and his move back to his, his roots. That's been pretty cool. Anyway, so
I got a funny story.
Okay, go ahead.
And I think this happened at Peter Tork's house. And at the time, David Crosby and Joni Mitchell were an item.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I'm not sure exactly how long they were together or whatever, but I guess I know he produced her first album and all that, and he's actually the one that discovered her in Florida.
Yeah, and he wrote the song Our House about her house.
And then, well, I guess when she decided, well, it's over between the two, she wrote a song about it. I cannot remember the name of the song, but they're at a party, and she plays the song, and it's basically a Dear John song to David Crosby, and everybody just loved the song. Also, they realized what the song was about, and if that wasn't bad enough, she sang it twice.
Right. Oh,
and then later on, she ends up with Graham Nash.
Is that like, right?
So I think she's going right down the line. And it seemed like those guys, Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young, they had a lot of drama as well. Especially with Neil Young. When Neil Young was in the band, when they played at Woodstock, you don't see it, but Neil Young is there. You just don't see him because he made sure that he would not be filmed. So they had him backstage someplace while he was performing. He did not want to be filmed. So you won't see him at Woodstock. He is performing, but you just don't see him.
Yeah.
It's kind of odd. And David Crosby does not like him at all. He said he doesn't care if he ever sees that guy again. He said he's one of the most egotistic, narcissistic guys he's ever met in his life.
No kidding.
So David Crosby.
I was a fan of a lot of those guys before they were ever Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. I mean, I really liked Stephen Stills.
Yeah.
He was a great guitar player, and he had, I had some of his music. It's the same with Neil Young.
They were both in the same band,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I loved him.
Yeah. That was I think Stephen Stills wrote the Big Buffalo Springfield, iconic hit. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head. Can you guys think of that?
Oh yeah.
There's something happening here. What it is?
Oh yeah.
But it's got a title that doesn't even occur in the song.
Yeah. There's a man with a gun over there.
For what it's worth.
For what it's worth.
For what it's worth.
And you know what? He didn't write that about the war. He did not write that about the war. People have thought it was about the war. His original, the version, what he wrote it about was on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood. Okay. Everybody would go to what was that place called? It's called,
Whiskey A Go-Go?
No, it's another place called
the Troubadour.
Not the Troubadour.
No.
Pandora's Box. It's called Pandora's Box.
Yeah.
And I don't know what, but that became a big draw for kids. And so I've actually seen footage of this. There's just hundreds and hundreds of these teenage kids outside this place, and they brought in the cops, and they're just beating heads.
Oh, really?
They said it was war against the hippies, and that's what the song was about. But you could take the same lyrics and and put it towards the war. You could interpret the same way. But he said it was all about these kids getting beat up by the cops on Sunset Boulevard.
That's the rioting that went on there?
Yeah.
Wow. They started arresting all the kids under 18 for being out after curfew and stuff?
Yes, that's right. After curfew.
Right. Paranoia strikes deep. There's 1,000 people in the street. There's a man with a gun over there, telling people you got to beware. You better stop. Hey, what's that sound? Oh, I forgot it. I'm sorry.
Everybody looks what's going down.
Stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. There it is. There it goes. Anyway, something like that. I never did that song, but I knew a few chords. So,
thank you, Gloria. Thank you very much. Appreciate hearing that. So anyway, we got to talk about. Here's a pretty interesting story, and the title of the story is John Lennon's Lost Weekend.
Oh yeah.
How did John Lennon ever make his way down there, man? And how did John Lennon ever show up down Laurel Canyon? Well, he got around, didn't he? He got
That's what
around.
I'm talking about.
Well,
This
yeah.
happened- he was
He
there.
wound up there because of Harry Nilsson, who was already connected
Wow.
Yeah.
to Laurel Canyon and all of that. And of course, he was sent on his merry way by Yoko with her spy Maypeg.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And,
so
you know,
with
and
all that stuff going
during
on,
that period
John
of time,
Lennon-
he was even hanging out, Michael, with the Hollywood Vampires up in the Rainbow
Yep,
Club.
yep.
The
And
second story that
right.
was just before his death.
McCartney showed up after Yoko got a hold of McCartney saying, I want to get back together with John, but I can't just say that. He must work his way back to me. And McCartney made
Oh,
a special trip out there to
No.
talk to John and give him that message. And that's
no
how
kidding.
John and Yoko got back together. That was
I
the
see.
first
Did-
reconnection.
Didn't Yoko handpick
That's
this
interesting.
female companion for John?
She sure did.
It's
That's
so
right. I
odd.
remember hearing that.
Yep.
I wonder
And
what she looked like.
So Lennon spent 2 days. He was trolling through Laurel Canyon and the surrounding bars with a lady's sanitary pad tied around his head, while he verbally abused artists like the Smothers Brothers.
Yeah.
And according to the paper, Lennon taunted the group during a performance at the Troubadour, while the audience told Lennon to shut up.
Oh my goodness.
Lennon took a swing at the Smother Brothers manager, Ken Fritz, missed, and took a lump to his head.
Oh no.
But he threw
Thus
a
the
glass at Fritz.
tampon, right?
But the glass hit. He threw a glass at Fritz, but the glass hit a waitress instead.
Oh gosh.
Lennon was then thrown out of the bar while Harry Nilsson watched. The Guardian ends the write-up of the event with the qualifier. Apparently, both men had been drinking quite a bit.
For days.
Lennon was
Actually.
charged with assault for that little incident too. He was charged with assault, and while they're dragging him out of the club, he kept yelling, "Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am?" One of those things.
Do you know what got me about?
You know who I
looking
am.
into-
I love it when people say stuff like that. Do you know who I am?
When I started looking into this Laurel Canyon, what got me was the friendships a lot of those people had, and with their caliber of their musicianship,
Right.
they really, enjoyed each other's stuff rather than having this competition thing that you see so much of.
Yeah. Isn't that really impressive, Rich?
It is, really is.
Yeah. Right.
I agree.
Well,
I was going to say, Richie, with that whole attitude, because all of them were fans of each other.
Right.
And what did we get? Here's the sound, I think, one of the general sounds that came out of all of that. The vocal harmonies. Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. The Beach Boys. Brian was there. He was part of that Laurel Canyon crowd. You've got the Mamas and Papas. The idea of what has been lost in modern music, 3-part harmonies, often for a 4th part thrown in for good measure. What a wonderful, beautiful, magnificent, and expansive sound that was.
I like the story where Crosby, Stills, and Nash, when they discovered the 3-part harmony, they had no idea they even existed. And I guess they layered the tracks. And when they heard the final product, they all looked at each other like, "What the hell is that?" They were flabbergasted by it. So that
right.
I remember when I first started doing gigs and got a manager and stuff. He goes, "Man, that 3-part harmony is so important. You got to get that." He sent us around to Vegas and told us a couple of different groups to look at and listen to what they were doing. And there's a few around that had that perfect 3-part harmony going. Yep.
So
we eventually got it. But it was.
One band
add a minor third and a fifth, and you're there, baby.
That's right.
One band you hardly ever hear about the quality of their harmonizing is the Beach Boys.
Yeah,
they really worked on that. That was not by accident.
And when you hear their songs and stuff, you think, man, those guys. It just seems like they just got up there and did it, but they must have had to work on.
Oh no! One of the members of the Beach Boys was a fan of a group that was like superb harmonies, and he really whipped the rest of the band members into shape when it came to harmonizing. Daddy Boggs, do you know this story? Which one of the Beach Boys was really strong on harmony, and really worked the other guys hard to get them to harmonize well.
Well, that was Brian, man.
Yeah,
Brian
Brian.
heard it all in his
Okay.
head.
You know, and I've got a funny story about Brian too. You know, he lived up there in Laurel Canyon, and when John Lennon was there, and you know, Mickey Dolenz knew John Lennon, so I guess John Lennon was over at Mickey Dolenz's house, and I guess there was a bunch of other people there, and Brian Wilson gets the call that, hey, John Lennon's over at Mickey's house, you know, come on over. And Brian Wilson had never met John Lennon before, and he suddenly turned into a fanboy. You know, he just, oh my God, I'm going to meet John Lennon. You know, and it's hard to imagine stars like that being starstruck by other stars, but
by each other. Yeah.
But Brian Wilson was so excited he's going to meet John Lennon, and so he shows up at Mickey Dolenz's house, and so there's a crowd in there, you know, and he tells somebody there, you know, hey, introduce me to John Lennon. So they go over and this is Brian Wilson, you know, hey, how you doing there? So they chit chat for about a minute or so. And then John Lennon turns off and starts talking to somebody else. Well, later on that night, a little while later, Brian Wilson goes up to another person and says, hey, introduce me to John Lennon. So he goes up and he introduces Brian Wilson to John Lennon again. And John Lennon and Brian Wilson start talking. Same thing happens. John walks off to somebody else. He said this happened 6 times that night, that he would get somebody else to introduce to John Lennon. And I forgot who it was. Somebody, I think it was Mickey, asked John Lennon, he said, you see what this guy's doing? He's gone up to you 6 times tonight. He goes, the man has a problem. He said, we all know that. He goes, but I'm not going to make it worse by making it a scene. He said, I want to make him feel good. You know, so he goes, it doesn't bother me at all. It doesn't bother me that he's done that. But that just shows you how big a fan some people are, you know, even starstruck when you're a star.
Yeah.
You remember John Lennon's famous protest song? All I can say is give peace a chance. Remember Vietnam and I? That all I can say is about 1 million people singing it, you know, is give peace a chance. Yeah, that was his famous protest, the war protest song. Give peace a chance. Yeah. That was all the words in the song right there, I believe.
You know, I had a little YouTube show about war protest songs. You know, I said from Vietnam to Desert Storm. You know,
yeah.
I mean, from you know, Eric Burdon and John Lennon and Crosby, Stills and Nash, Ohio, and all those great songs, all the way to Toby Keith after 9/11 and stuff. You know, and so we talked about, and it was fun. And I have a iTunes library of just for those protest songs, because there's so many of them. There's so many great songs were inspired by war. It's just crazy. I mean, you think of the Eric Burdon songs like Sky Pilot and some of the others, and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Running to the Jungle, among others. I mean, they all had more than one, you know. And man, it was just amazing stuff, amazing songs. I'll still go to that playlist and play those songs. And sometimes I'll play them through twice. I mean, there's some really, really good songs there. Eric Burdon had some great stuff.
Oh, I love Eric Burdon.
That Sky Pilot just hits you right here when you listen to that one, you know.
I was in a band in the 8th grade with another guitar player, me and him, and this little black drummer guy named James Jackson. Anyway, no kidding. And the other guitar player was Till Freeman, and he wrote a song about Vietnam called One Fine Day in the 8th grade, man.
No,
it's like one fine day I'll be coming home was the chorus. One fine day I'll be coming. It was a great song. 12 years old. It was unbelievable.
That is unbelievable.
I know.
Hey, look, we got Mike Pre-Code fan here. How you doing, buddy? Thanks for hanging out. Love the anti-war songs. Boy, you and me both, brother. Pre-Code fan.
Oh, and we won the talent contest. We did Proud Mary.
I've got to tell my Monkees story. Okay, most people just remember the Monkees as kind of a made-for-television band, but they had 5 big hits while they were in Laurel Canyon, and they were really popular, and everybody wanted to hang out and party with the Monkees. I mean, they were like, and we're talking about all these other celebrities. Many of them became even much bigger stars. But I mean, everybody says, okay. Even though they're remembered as a TV band, the Monkees were actually an integral part of the Laurel Canyon scene, and they have no less than 5 excellent tunes. During the band's meteoric rise, Peter Tork lived with Stephen Stills of Crosby, Stills and Nash. Peter Tork did. How crazy is that? Okay, near the home where the Monkees drummer Mickey Dolenz lived. Both pads were full-on party houses throughout the height of their fame. According to Dolen's ex-wife, a party with Peter Tork meant that everyone was naked, especially Tork.
I don't know if I could be just the other guy that lived with Peter Tork. Just the other guy, and having to go through that every day. I don't know. I have to,
Dolenz told ABC that parties at his place would start out on Friday night as a little cocktail party with some food, and then on Monday morning, people would still be walking around naked and falling into the pool.
Oh dear, yeah, I read that.
One thing I did notice, you got all these people that associated, like Mickey Dolenz, very social, and so a lot of parties were at his house. You had Cass Elliot, a lot of parties at her house, Frank Zappa. So there's a lot of these places, just everybody knew where to go. But there are some people that lived there that were stars that didn't. I can't find any stories about them really, about them socializing with other people in that area. Carole King, she lived there, but I can't find any stories about her. She just lived there and was quiet, I guess.
Well, wasn't Carole King was based? Yeah, I'm really here, guys. She was she was a New York gal, brought up in the Brill Building. Kind of her approach, I think, would have been a little bit different, don't you think, Dan? Living there,
probably so.
Yeah.
Well, plus she'd already been in the business for a while too. I mean, she was writing songs back 1959, 1960.
Oh yeah.
Frank Zappa's wife said she was doing. I saw her in an interview. She said back then the Western world was more than half people under 25.
Yep.
Oh, baby boomers.
So she was talking about boom. It wasn't like, remember when we had that little texting thing going on with Lou earlier?
Yeah.
He said that they were more confused in that period than ever, but that's not true. There was a revolution. It was different.
That's right.
It wasn't confusion. Yeah. They were doing what they wanted to do.
Yep.
And they didn't care about the next older generation up. So it was either we accept them or you accept us.
Well, that's cool. I got a pretty funny story about Mickey Dolenz. Mickey Dolenz got a phone call and they said, Beach Boy Brian Wilson's coming over. And so sure enough, a limo pulls out front. The door opens. Brian Wilson steps out in a bathrobe wearing flip-flops.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Proceeds to come in, go into the studio, sit down. And let's see. I mean, Harry Nilsson was there. John Lennon was there. And he started playing this Beach Boys lick kind of thing.
Oh, I know what story this is.
Dolan said that Wilson recorded the whole session, although it's yet to be released, the tapes. Wouldn't that be amazing to hear that?
Oh, yeah.
Now, what was the
Harry
session
in there,
sounding
and John Lennon's in there, and it's Wilson just walks into the studio and starts playing. Did you hear that story, Michael?
No. What did it sound like again? What style?
Well, no. Mickey Dolenz got a phone call, and the guy on the other end of the phone said Brian Wilson's on his way, and this was a period of time when Brian Wilson was never going out and hanging out with anybody. So a limo pulls up in front of Mickey Dolenz' place. The door opens. Brian Wilson steps out in a bathrobe wearing flip-flops, proceeds to go into Dolen's house, into the studio and sit down, started playing a Beach Boys-y kind of a thing, and sat down and recorded a ton of stuff. John Lennon was there. Harry Nilsson was there. And of course, Mickey Dolenz was there. And it all got recorded, and none of it's been released.
Well, one part of that story that I've heard too is when he sat down and started playing the piano, it really wasn't a full song. And it was like, I don't know, a few bars that he kept playing over and over and over and over. And they're going,
I know exactly what he's talking about.
And John Lennon says, do you have a bridge? When are you going to get to the bridge?
Yeah, he said, go to the bridge, man. Go to the bridge. Yeah.
Where is that confounded bridge?
That still blows me away about the Monkees, and they are actually there and hanging out with all these people. Then I think of the songs they had, and then it all fits, because they had some great songs. They really did have some great songs. But it still blew
you
me
know,
away. The Monkees are hanging around with Eric Clapton, Zappa, and and all these people, and Lennon, and it's like,
right.
The
Well, you
Monkees.
know, when the Monkees were in England, again, they were there at a time Mama Cass was there, and they partied with the Beatles, man. The Beatles were inclusive of the Monkees.
Yeah.
As a matter
Yeah.
of fact, they saw the Monkees as taking up the spot that they had already,
Right.
you know,
Well,
Right.
been
it's true.
at.
The Beatles did change the world of rock music. I mean, they just
Yes,
really
they
did
did.
change the world.
But you know,
And I didn't even realize that totally until today when I was reading stuff about them.
but you know, Mickey Dolenz actually apologized to Jimi Hendrix because when Hendrix opened up for the Monkees, they didn't realize he was as good as he was. So he gets out there and he's just wailing on the guitar,
Right.
but the audience is going,
Right.
Mickey, Davey.
Right.
How embarrassing,
Right.
huh? They're hollering for the Monkees, right?
Yep.
I guess
that
he
was
wasn't embarrassed. I don't know.
Well,
Shit
he
happens.
didn't. Jimmy didn't stay with that tour for very long. It
No.
didn't work from the very first concert. I
Yeah, I
mean,
can
it was
imagine. Yeah.
Well,
it
they
was
said,
a disaster. Wasn't
they
it?
said
That
Jim-
reminds me of when not War, but Tower of Power warmed up for Rod Stewart. It was a nightmare for them, you know. They're
I
up
would
there
imagine.
doing all this funk and soul, and nobody even really heard that stuff yet.
Right.
I would rather hear Tower of Power than a solo Rod
Okay.
Stewart any day.
you know, another band that was popular out there at Laurel Canyon, and I never even heard of this band until I did some research on this. A band called Love. I don't know if you ever heard of this band called Love. And the way I understand, they weren't quite good enough or whatever. They were starting to gain some momentum with their music.
Okay.
And even though I've never heard a song from them, but you know, at the time, I guess they were getting
I've
some
heard of them
momentum.
before, but I can't remember.
Things were going good,
Uh,
and the record company was wanting to sign somebody, and they knew the Doors. They told the record company, "Well, go take a look at the Doors. These guys, I think it's from Elektra Records, as a matter of fact." And they said, "Go take a look at them, man. They're pretty good."
Well,
So
the
they would-
Doors,
so
they
they-
wanted to take a different contract after they already was with that company you're talking about.
Well,
And so they told them about the Doors, and I guess they got to get out of it and go with this other company that was bigger.
Well, not immediately. The money that was set
Immediately?
the money that was set aside for advertising and promotion for the band Love, they moved that money over to the Doors,
Right.
and the
Yeah.
Doors got all that money. And so that band from Love, they're going, "What the hell did we do to ourselves?"
A couple of wrong
You know?
decisions, bad decisions, I think.
But
It's probably part of it.
I'm gonna do a little more research on that band called Love. I've never
Yeah.
heard of them before.
Yeah.
I just looked something up on them. They were kind of headed by Arthur Taylor Lee, and they had their album "Forever Changes" was inducted into the National Recording Registry. It's considered and inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame. So he later died 2006, so that didn't
Wow.
figure in.
Wow.
And they were I guess he was heavily influenced by the Byrds, who were heavily influenced by the Beatles, of course. And so I'm hot to look at this one. I've got to figure this. I want to, because I'm not familiar. Like Royce, I heard of the band's name,
Yeah.
but I didn't go out and discover them. for
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
reason.
See if- when you check it
But
out,
I
see if
want
there's
to
one of them
now.
that see
Yeah,
if there's one of the
right.
guys that wouldn't go out of California. That was one of their problems.
Right.
He didn't want to go off the West Coast, and he was scared. He was like 19 years old, and he was a key person in the band.
There was also something else that was hindering him at the time. You got to remember the time that this was. You know, I guess the civil rights movement had just ended, and
Yeah.
the band makeup. There were two black guys in the band,
Right.
and the rest of them were white guys, and they kind of thought that it had something to do with the race issue, the way the racial makeup of the
Oh.
band was, and so that's what kind of hindered them. And of course, then they said, "Hey, go check out the Doors," and that shot him in the foot even more.
Well, it's interesting because somehow Sly and the Family Stone kind of worked out real well with that kind of blend. As a matter of fact, I remember the first time. First of all, I just loved the music, and then when I, would research the actual band, I'm going, it's a potpourri of people. I love it. I
Yeah.
love it, you know.
Yeah.
Anybody, any color, you know. It was a
Right.
rainbow band, and all
Right.
of a sudden, what they were singing,
Right.
what
Right.
they were singing in their songs, took on a greater meaning just by the makeup of that band. You know,
Right.
Sly Stone does not get enough credit for his
Oh
part
no.
in all of this. You know,
No, he's fantastic. Yeah.
oh, amazing artist.
Yes. I saw him twice in concert at the Hollywood Palladium.
Oh, lucky you! I've never
Oh,
seen him.
it was so much
Oh,
fun, Michael. When the band left the
oh,
stage and people were screaming for an encore, he always came out by himself. And he was going around playing all the instruments and singing, then he'd yell out, "Want to take you higher," and the whole crowd would just
ah.
scream, you know. Then
Oh,
he'd
I love
dance
his
around.
voice.
He's a real character, you know. He'd dance around and
Yeah,
mess around with some instruments, and he'd grab the microphone, "Want to take you higher," and the place would just
yeah,
go crazy again, you know. But I
yeah.
mean, it was that encore was that's probably the best encore. I mean, I used to think, you know, I saw Eddie Van Halen after they reunited with David Lee Roth right here in Paso Robles, and you know, when they all left the stage and everybody was encore and clapping, nobody wanted to leave. Eddie came out with a little wooden chair and set it down, set the microphone in front of him, and sat there and soloed for about 25 minutes. And I mean,
Right. Yeah.
that was one of the best solos I've ever seen, but I almost forgot about Sly Stones. I would say
Yeah.
Sly probably has to take it, you know.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
just great. So
Well,
entertaining. He was a true entertainer. And I think he started out as a disc jockey, if I'm not mistaken.
Did he? I didn't
I
know
believe
that.
so.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a story
Wow.
I heard anyway.
Yeah, Mike Precode fan out in the chat says that Sly and the Family Stone was probably the best part of the weekend at Woodstock.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, they were, and I liked them well before I ever saw them in concert. That's why I went to see them. But I really liked that band. Not everybody liked them, you know, but
Oh, I loved him.
I did too. I absolutely loved them. Yeah. And
I gotta go. You guys, I gotta
kind of
go.
like the horn section too, you know.
I gotta take off.
Okay, Richie, thank you. We're
All
gonna
right,
be
Richie.
closing. We're gonna be
Okay.
closing the show here. Richie, thank you very much. Really appreciate you showing up. And
No problemo.
yeah, you have to play some Last Train to Clarksville next time you come.
Oh, okay. I'll look that one. I'll get that. I remember that one.
Okay.
That's a good one.
Okay, sounds good.
It is.
All right. Take it
Okay,
easy.
thanks, brother.
See ya.
You know, I want to close with how it all started to crumble, you know, in Laurel Canyon. They had this by the late 70s, criminal activity in the neighborhood, including distribution of drugs, was controlled by the Wonderland Gang, named for Laurel Canyon, a Laurel Canyon thoroughfare. And the neighborhood became associated with the Wonderland murders, a grisly quadruple homicide in 1981. And members of one associate of the Wonderland Gang, so-called, because they were based on Wonderland Avenue, that's why they were called the Wonderland Gang, died in the Wonderland murders, also known as the Four of the Floor murders, or the Laurel Canyon murders, Salon reports. The massacre took place just down the street from what had been the home of Jerry Brown, who was California's governor at the time. Oh my God. Anyway, so that's a sad story there, but I really, it's really even hard to wrap your head around how many great musicians were living within walking distance of each other's homes.
Right.
Yeah.
We're hanging out on a regular basis. I mean, it's just really hard to wrap your head around that.
You know,
And who was not famous at first. See,
yeah.
all that talent coagulated
Yes.
because they needed a cheaper place to live. Oh, good Lord.
It's funny that, you know, they said they lived there because it was cheaper. Look at the
Yeah.
price.
Yeah.
Look at the prices
was
in those
cheaper.
homes now. There's
The Hollywood
$7-8
Hill,
million.
It's probably not, yeah.
Yeah.
They probably started about 10 million, you know.
Easily.
And that would be like a teardown, you know, just for the lot.
Oh yeah, just for the land, because you know now it's very history adds to the land's worth. You know,
Yeah.
it really does.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And before the musicians were there, the actors and actresses were living there, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah, Mike. Thank you, Mike. Cool comment.
I like looking at the old historic photos of that area before it was built up at all, and there were just dirt roads, and they had the what do you call it, the trackless trolleys that went up there, because the cars back in those days couldn't go up those hills. They had I guess it was like electric bus or whatever. They had a power line above it.
Wow.
And it wasn't on a track. They just drove,
Right.
So, but it's just kind of neat to see how it all. I went way back on that Laurel Canyon area. And it's just cool to see how it all built up, and how some of it's still standing. There's a picture of Mick Jagger. I forgot whose house this was at, but the house burned down. A lot of those houses did burn down. I mean, I guess just because it's California,
right? And
but
we've had some fires.
But there's a picture of Mick Jagger sitting on this fireplace, and you can see this really fancy tile behind him. And whoever went out there, this is probably about a year or so ago, look for remains of this, and you can still see that mosaic still in the wall. And you can still see part of the fireplace. You go, wow, that is so cool. Just see the remnants of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why I'd like to take a trip out there, because that's what I'd be looking for.
I want to go down there now. Really bad. I do. I definitely want to get down there. If you're anywhere in the area, call me. We'll go meet down there.
There you go.
I almost want a hammer and a chisel, kind of chisel out a piece of concrete. This is from this house,
Right.
I actually did that at Alcatraz. When I was on Alcatraz, as I was leaving, there's a stone wall that leads down to where the ferries are. I took a stone out of the wall, put it in my pocket. So I got a rock from Alcatraz.
That's great.
Well, that's great. Well, hey, I want to thank everybody. Michael, I really appreciate you showing up. We always love having you. And Dan, thank you so much. You're just a great host, and you're always a big help, and there's always that added value, videos, photo. You know what I mean? I mean, Dan always comes with some goods, and we've been having a great time.
Dan delivers every time.
Yeah, Lou Mars. Now we love Lou Mars, but you know what? He's got. I think he said 3 bands now. Him and Dana, who we all know, Dana Hansen. They made that little video together. That was really cool. Well, she's well known in the area up there in Chico in the music field, and so she's got a lot of gigs to do. And so he started backing her up now. They just recently did one this week. And then they put together a band that they're going to supposedly, or they're getting ready to, when it's going to be next year, but they're going to go on the road, and tour with that band. And then I guess there's some other bands. So he's like really, really busy, and he's got some other avenues he's exploring musically and stuff like that. He really wants to get into a newer sound. He was talking about some of the newer indie bands down in LA that are really doing well and stuff. And so he's got all kinds of irons in the fire. So I don't know how much we'll be seeing of Lou in the future, because he's just, and besides that, after the first year, he's supposed to take off on a tour,
Yeah.
So things have changed.
Good luck to Lou.
Absolutely. So things have changed a lot since he was living van life. He went back and forth across the United States twice in his van.
I know he did, yeah.
And just stopped and stayed as long as he want, where, if he likes something, he'd just stop and hang out for a while, and days, weeks, and then take off to a new destination. And it wasn't like a straight line back and forth. He was doing this, And I mean, that really sounds like fun too. I would love to do that sometime. Betty and I actually talk about doing that. So anyway, I don't know how much we're going to see Lou. He said he might pop in from time to time, and he's always welcome.
Well, good luck, Lou. I mean, if you're seeing this,
we're all pulling for you, brother.
Best wishes, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So
you too, Dana.
Michael, and Dana too. Yeah, Dana's really talented. Michael, thank you very much, and Dan, thank you very much. I really want to thank everybody in the chat. We really, really appreciate you. If there's anybody there that hasn't subscribed yet, please go ahead and subscribe and hit that notification bell. We make sure you don't miss the next show or miss knowing when it's going to happen. And you know what? I mean, the show would grow tremendously if some of the videos got actually replayed on people's individual channels. That really helps a lot. I've seen shows really grow by people just replaying some of these shows. So anyway, thank you all very much. And we'll see you all next week. And that's what's going on in Royce's world today. Thank you all so much. Good night, all.
See y'all.
Good night.
Good night.